are live, and today we're talking about insulin and the job of insulin, um, all the jobs that insulin has. And so insulin has many different jobs, and one of them is the one that we mostly know, which is to actually get and use our sugar as energy sources. And the other one, there are many of them, but one that people do not know is that insulin actually turns sugar into fat. What insulin does, the way that it does that is actually activates a little machine in our bodies that starts looking for excess fat, uh, and then it takes more sugar to it. And the way that it does that is this little machine is called lipoprotein lipase. And what it does is that it takes excess sugar, sugar that we've eaten, and then it turns it into fat. And so many people that have this horrible disease around the globe right now, there's a bigger problem that is getting bigger, right? And many people can't seem to get rid of this disease. And the way that most people understand the disease is actually completely wrong. There's a lot of misunderstandings around this disease, and not because anybody is smarter than anybody else, but it's just because the information that we've gotten and has been trickled down into society is very different now than what it was when all of this first started. And for instance, insulin at the beginning, when it was discovered, it was thought to be the cure for diabetes, right? But the truth was that it was only the cure for type 1 diabetes, meaning people who cannot make insulin at all. Because people who cannot make insulin at all, their insulin levels are so low. This is why most people who have type 1 insulin, type 1 diabetes are very skinny, they're very thin, because it's very hard to gain weight without insulin taking this excess sugar into fat, right? And so that's the first thing. And then later we started to understand, like, wait a minute, a lot of people, even if you give them so much insulin, they actually start gaining more weight, and they become insulin resistant, and then they end up having type 2 diabetes. So this is one of the main problems with this myth that we've created, that insulin is the cure all be all. So the truth is that if you want to reverse type 2 diabetes, most of the studies and most of the people who have done it is by improving insulin resistance. Insulin resistance meaning that you want to make sure that the insulin in your body that is there already is working well. And once it's working well, then you want to make sure that it's the lowest level as possible, because not only you want your sugar levels down, but you actually want your insulin levels down. And how do you do that? Well, a lot of people focus on diet, right? But there are two things that have been shown to actually have extreme impacts on diabetes, and that is fasting and exercise. And so fasting has a lot of scientific evidence behind it, and some of the benefits of fasting include longevity, include decrease of heart attack, decrease of dementia, decrease of Alzheimer's. And so there's a lot of benefits to fasting. There's many different ways of going about it. Some people do intermittent fasting, like 10, 12 hours. Some people do 16 hours. Some people do 24. Some people do 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. The highest impact of fasting, you probably start seeing it around 3 days fast, about 72 hours. That's when the body starts really kicking in other systems to be able to give you fuel to survive. And then you also get a lot of benefits from fasting 8 to 16 hours. You start getting benefits because after 8 hours, your body starts kicking in the systems to say, hey, we're not intaking energy, then we got to start making our own energy. So it's actually start reversing the whole process and making sugar out of your fat so that you can use it. That's why exercise is so important as a part of the regimen, to be able to utilize the sugar that is already there. that is not being used and that is stored as fat, as glycogen. And so that's one of the main things. And then fasting, of course, is important, and then exercise, like I talked about. So those are the main two things, without talking about diets, that have a lot to do with insulin resistance, and that can get you a lot of results with insulin resistance and in the road of reversing type 2 diabetes. Look, a lot of people don't like fasting. A lot of the physicians don't like fasting, but I really believe that human beings, in some way, we were designed to have periods of fasting, because that's what actually made us survive. I mean, if you look at all the um, study from anthropology and studies from human development, you start realizing that humans had to be pretty resilient. And these mechanisms of resiliency, one of them is like, what do you do if you can't eat? And the body can actually deploy a lot of systems to be able to get you through not eating, and actually increase your mental acuity, increase your anger response, and increase your focus. And so some of those things, if controlled, can actually be very useful. That's why a lot of people in Silicon Valley are starting to do fasting, because it has been shown to improve the sharpness of our brain and how we can work. Now, that's a double-edged sword, because the more you fast, 7 days or so, you start actually having some drawbacks. But for those 3 to 5 days, it can be very beneficial. Another benefit of it is actually a process called autophagy. And so autophagy, what it all means is that the body has actually an ability to utilize and to create almost like a recycling system, that the dead parts of the cells and um, dead parts of the systems, the cellular systems, can actually be replenished and optimizing and optimizing and optimizing. And they have realized in a lot of the experiments done in mice that, yeah, I mean, when you put mice in fasting states, they can live a lot longer. They do incredible amounts of benefits for these mice. So that's it for today. Until next time, Dr. Z here, and take it easy.